advice do you have to homeowners?
Practicing that preparedness. Starting the conversation now is always going to be a benefit to any association out there.
And welcome to Recovery Report Live. I'm Dan Odess, president of GlobalPro, where we manage your risk to recovery. We are excited to have you here with us today for some really important updates regarding your legislation changes coming to Florida. It's really important information that you need to assist you with your recovery, and we want to make sure that to protect your interests, that you're doing everything you can to make sure that you're complying with these laws, whether you're a public adjuster or an attorney or whether a policyholder. There are many changes that are coming, and we want to make sure that you have that information that you need and that you need to use in order to make sure that you protect your interests. All right, so there's a lot to cover here. We got two bills that we need to talk about, Senate Bill 76 and Senate Bill 1598. Really important changes that are coming. Something to obviously remember, though, is that they passed, while they did get approval in the Senate and the House, we're still waiting for the governor to step in and sign these bills into law. So really important information. Know that once it goes to the governor, he has 14 days to sign these things. As of yesterday evening, we did check and it had yet to go to the governor. But once it does, we will report to you and let you know. There's 14 days for him to sign it. Once these two bills go into effect, there's a lot of changes coming July 1st as well as in 2022. So, there's some confusion over these things, but these are really important issues. Very excited to share this information with you. It's fresh, it's new, it's a lot of big changes. Looking back at the history of these bills and as they were proposed, a lot of it came to fruition with the idea that it was going to save us policyholders money. But the reality of it is that there's absolutely nothing in these bills that saves you money. In fact, what it mostly does is actually restrict your access to competent representation and further burden you and your advocates, let's say attorneys or public adjusters, with additional requirements. There are a few good things in here that are certainly consumer protections, and we'll go over those things in a few minutes, but a little bit of a longer broadcast. I hope you stick with me all the way through to the end to talk about this. But just keep in mind, we will be issuing a formal memo. Will be available on our website. We'll have it on social media. Make sure there's links to it that will provide all the information you need as a policyholder to protect your interests. So I want to dive right into some of these. And again, I told you it's two bills, Senate Bill 76 and Senate Bill 1598. And a lot of information to go through. I got it right here in front of me on one of the many monitors and laptops we have in the studio here to make sure that I hit on each of these points and give you actionable information. Make sure that you're aware of what is important and what issues you as a policyholder, as a business owner or community association, and if you are tuning in and you're an attorney or a public adjuster, good information in here. From our perspective, again, a lot of this is very anti-consumer. Some of it touches on some issues for the policyholder, and certainly some good protections there, but very few. Mostly, and one of the things to take home is that it's not going to save you money, and that's really what the campaign for these bills was supposed to do. So let's dive right in here. We got Senate Bill 76 effective on January 1st, 2021. So coming up, right? We got storm season starting this weekend, May 15th. Make sure it's on your calendar. And then July 1st in Senate Bill 76, some general points about how this bill may impact you or public adjuster advocates. There's going to be some changes to the law regarding public adjusters, contractors advertising to residential property owners. Something confusing about the Florida statute and the bill is that not all of it relates to commercial policies. For you business owners and community association managers or board members that are tuning in, a lot of these things and changes don't impact you. But as homeowners or condominium unit owners, a lot of these laws do apply, whether it's for the public adjuster or the attorney that's representing you, or you as a consumer. So the law, a couple impacts. There's three that I noted. First you have the law regarding public adjuster and contractors advertising. Then you have public adjusters offering or inducements for services, and then establishes a framework for governing property insurance litigation. Again, None of that saves you money. So we have three things there that we want to hit on. First off, we have section 1, changes there, creates a new section of law regarding construction contractors. I do think that this is in part some consumer protections. Do I think it goes far enough? Probably not, because again, it's not in the contractor laws. It's not, it does reference some of the contract laws, but again, we're finding this embedded in the public adjusting laws. For whatever reason. And then you have section 4, amends the definition of public adjusters, which simply reinforces some licensing requirements. Definitely a huge advocate for that. In fact, I helped the lobbying efforts back in 2012 to actually increase the licensing requirement and bonding and things like that. I do believe that we need more and better more and better laws to ensure that public adjusters are competent in providing you decent and good advice. And that they have the competencies and are tested on that in order to actually get licensed. So I'm a huge advocate of that. Section 12 creates a new section of law for property insurance contracts, the most anti-consumer language in all the bills, for sure. You have an abatement or dismissal without prejudice of actions if notice of the intent to initiate litigation is not properly and timely provided in 10 days. I know that's a mouthful, probably a bit confusing. Before I get too far ahead, what this change does is it requires you to actually tell your insurance company you're going to sue them, and then gives them yet another opportunity to try to settle or justify their denial or underpayment or delay of your claim. So it's just giving them yet another opportunity. Conversely, other parts of the actual Senate bill, the next Senate bill we'll get into, actually restricts your advocate and makes them to more quickly provide you information, whereas the insurance company gets yet another chance to delay, deny, or settle your claim at some point. But the reality is, like, why weren't they doing this along the way? Why weren't they actually advocating for your interests and making sure that you're getting the payment you're entitled to? Why aren't they acting pursuant to the contract and the Florida statutes and the laws that require them to, in good faith, resolve your claim and bring things to fruition in a timely manner? Why do we need another 10 days? Why do we need to give them notice of it? Isn't it enough that you gave them prompt notice of the actual claim, that you produced to them estimates and evaluations of the loss, and isn't it enough that you gave them access to your property? Isn't it enough that you openly communicated with them, answered their questions, and cooperated along the way? But we have to give them yet another notice? Yes, you do. Along these lines, upon receipt of the notice, the insurer is afforded another 10 days to respond, as if denying the claim isn't enough. So again, there's remedies there's these several remedy notices which you can file if your insurance company is not acting in good faith, which does give them the opportunity to respond, but we have to now give them another notice before we maybe even be able to do that. I don't know. There's a question mark next to that. So again, not really making a lot of sense. Then there's this whole body of information regarding attorney's fees and how they're to calculate whether or not your attorney can recover their fees for having to sue your insurance company. Even if you sue your insurance company and you get a recovery, but it doesn't meet a certain threshold, guess what? You're still burdened with having to pay your attorney a percentage of your claim, which is typical contingency fee basis, or there's attorney's fees. It comes out of your recovery. It just really doesn't add up. If I had to sue my insurance company to get them to pay and I'm awarded attorney's fees, but for some reason I didn't meet certain thresholds, I didn't recover enough, they arbitrarily came up with this range, 20%, 50%, in order to be able to get your attorney paid for having to sue your insurance company for underpaying, denying or delaying your claim. A bit of a tongue twister there. So again, not making a whole lot of sense, but it's there. And last but certainly not least, statute of limitations told another 30 days if you're going through this alleged pre-suit notice process, which is confusing and quite frankly probably won't lead to any more resolution than we saw before. I expect it to just lead to more inspections and more document requests and examinations under oath and all these delay tactics that we typically see when your insurance company is actually given notice of the lawsuit without being able just to sue them. Even when you sue them, they still try to argue that they need more inspections and need to take your EUO, or that you owe them certain post-loss obligations. even though in some of our claims where we've checked all those boxes, they're still making those arguments. So they're giving them more time, they're giving more notice, they're tolling the statute of limitations by 30 days, which I guess was a quick pro quo by the legislator to give you some consumer protections to allow you the opportunity, if it doesn't get resolved, to still bring the lawsuit and not prejudice you in some way from being able to bring a lawsuit when it doesn't get resolved. So kudos to them for thinking that far ahead, I guess. But we have another Senate bill, 1598. Effective upon governor's approval, except for one of the sections, section 18, which we'll get to real briefly and quickly here. Bunch of different changes here, section 2, 3, 4, 6, 10, 18, we need to get through real quick. So again, this is a general overview. We will be issuing memos and information about this to follow. So be looking for that. I'm not really going into a tremendous amount of detail to each and every nuance of these bills. I think it would just be boring and long and certainly not engaging, but really good information. Section 2 amends general powers and duties of the Department of Financial Services. Again, look for the memo. We'll kind of break that down. Section 2 amends filing, licensing, appointment, and fees for public adjusters. Again, for you public adjusters that may be tuning in or looking for this information, it'll be in our memo and we'll break down that information in there. Again, I'm a proponent of licensing requirements and appointments. I'm okay with the license. What they're basically doing is having now to license the actual companies that are providing the public justice services. So I don't think it's all that a bad thing. I think it's actually probably a good thing. Just like when a GC has to qualify a company and you have to register, I'm okay with things like that. Section 4 amends licensing and appointment requirements for agents, customer representatives, adjusters, insurance agencies, service representatives, and managing general agents. Also will be part of our memo. Section 6 adds 2 new subsections to grounds for discretionary refusal, suspension, or revocation of agents, adjusters, customer representatives, service agents, and all those mentioned in the prior section. Also be part of the memo. Section 10 changes the requirements for public adjuster contracts, estimates, and adds specific prohibitions. This is a big one. Certainly believe, as a consumer advocate, someone licensed as a public adjuster, but also licensed as many other things: insurance agent, general contractor. I went through engineering school. I have the competency to be able to represent clients, whether they're commercial property owner operators, the hospitality industry, condominium associations. We've managed and handled claims well in excess of $10 million on a regular basis. We've handled homeowner claims. I mean, we have seen much of anything, and maybe probably everything at this point. We've seen marine losses. I mean, we have the competency on our staff. So I scratch my head at some of these changes. And again, some of these sections and some of the revisions only apply to residential property unit owners. And it's really important to understand the distinction, which will be highlighted in our memo. But I want to get into section 10 a little bit, so to kind of break it down. First thing it does is it increases the rescission period of a public adjuster's contract, otherwise known as a cooling off period, right? Up to 10 days. Currently it's 3 or 5, depending if it's a state of emergency. We're now at 10 days. Why this doesn't really make sense to me is that there's also a change in this section which requires a public adjuster to produce produce an estimate within 60 days of execution of their contract for a residential homeowner or condo unit owner property. Now, I find this a bit odd because if I have to produce, as a licensed public adjuster who gets a signed contract from a homeowner or a condo unit owner, there's 10 days cooling off period, but I have 60 days to produce to you an estimate. But the insurance company has 90 days to issue a coverage determination, right? They have 14 days to respond to much of any requests or any correspondence we submit to them asking for information, like the policy, which most of our clients don't even have a copy of, okay? So they have 14 days to give us the actual policy of insurance. They have 10 days to wait to decide whether or not they want to cancel the contract, but we have 60 days to provide an estimate. Now, most insurance companies extend the 90-day period in order to issue coverage. Most claims actually, in fact, don't really see payment or a coverage determination within the first actual 4 months, right? So it's a bit beyond the 90-day or 3-month period. And that's based on good authority and information we have and statistics we track and follow. In fact, if you look at some of the larger losses for homeowner claims, it's sometimes not 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year after the loss before we see the insurance company's first evaluation. So it's odd to me that if an insurance company, if I get my contract signed as a public adjuster, I have to I have a cooling off period of 10 days. So I take on that risk of representing a client that may cancel my contract in 10 days. I have every right to do it based on these Florida statutes. But an insurance company has 14 days to possibly, let's say, one of our first requests we send out with our letter of representation is a certified copy of the policy. They have 14 days. So 14 days. Okay, but remember, clock is ticking. I got 60 days to produce an estimate to the insurance company. That burden's on us as a public adjuster to do that. Now, it doesn't seem to have this condition of it, whether or not it being reasonable or not, which the insurance companies are afforded in their 90-day period to issue coverage. So your insurance company can extend their 90 days, but it doesn't appear that a public adjuster can extend the 60-day period. Let's say our client is not cooperating, not producing, incurred expenses or invoices or proposals they may have received for work prior to the execution of our contract. Or maybe they're in the process of getting it, but maybe there's some issue with it and we need to go back to that contract and obtain new information. 60 days. Now, let's say it's revised or adds some standard of, that there's a reasonable standard and like the insurance companies are afforded to extend certain periods of time in order to comply with the deadlines imposed on them. Maybe it can make sense. And, quite frankly, you should be working as hard as you possibly can for your client. I'm not to say that. And I certainly think public adjusters should get to work as soon as they can, especially after a major disaster like a hurricane and everything else. But when resources are limited and we're experiencing labor shortages and material shortages right now, and there's no storm, and this weekend we're in storm season, which is, by the way, today they just updated. It was supposed to have even more named storms. I think they're up to 17. The Weather Channel was reporting on their social media and their website. So all things considered, right, it seems to be an odd standard imposed on a insured's advocate, such as a public adjuster or their attorneys, because of the restrictions on attorneys' fees, and now the time periods imposed on both the insured in order to bring a lawsuit against an insurance company who has wronged them by not paying a claim and delaying and denying and for any number of reasons why you may bring a lawsuit, you have to give them yet another opportunity, as if the civil remedy notices and all the other compliance issues under a dues amendment of loss were not enough pursuant to a contract. Now you impose additional deadlines on a public adjuster who's trying to do their job. First off, you're extending the period someone can cancel a contract, but then imposing shorter deadlines on them than you have on the insurance company side to producing evaluations. It's really just not adding up for me. So, but there's other things here. It prohibits persons other than a licensed public adjuster's attorney from offering or initiating or negotiating on behalf of an insured or advertising services which require public adjusting license. Great. I'm a huge advocate for this. I mean, there's many times that people allege that they can assist an insured, whether it's immediately running to demand appraisal, or a contractor comes in and says, oh, we got people on staff that are former licensed adjusters or are licensed adjusters that, don't worry, we'll help and communicate directly with the insurance company. Great, we're getting rid of that stuff. That's fantastic. And I applaud those efforts, and I think that's advantageous to our insurance industry. I think it's fantastic to clear up some of these issues. The department may take administrative actions and impose fines for any person performing services described in the sections without a license. Awesome, but I mean, I would assume this goes without saying, but you want to more clearly define it? Great, I'm glad it's in here. Prohibits a public adjuster, an apprentice, or a firm who solicits a claim and does not enter into a contract with an insured or third-party claim from charging or receiving payment from an insured or third-party claim. Okay, makes sense. Again, something logical in there. We're a proponent of that. Again, we're giving you a brief overview here, guys. So this is not 100%. where the memo will be issued. We'll break all this down in more detail. And then section 18, the final section here, which is actually a consumer protection. And it requires an insurer to provide a policyholder the adjuster's name and state adjuster license number when a claim investigation involves a physical inspection of the property, and maintain a record of each adjuster who communicates with the policyholder. Now, this, for many of us, may not seem like as if it's really doing much of anything, may not be applicable to a situation you've experienced in the past, but I can assure you, it is a big issue with many claims that we see, particularly after a hurricane. So what happens is that the insurance companies aren't properly staffed to deal with hurricanes, despite you paying more and more premium. So what they do is the legislator, or the Department of Financial Services relaxes the licensing requirements for independent adjusters. And we see this influx of adjusters from really all over the world. In fact, some come from Canada, come from the Caribbean, South America, to come and assist with administering claims. The thing is that shortly after they do whatever they do, which is typically not much of anything, because they're really, a lot of times we see them as placeholders. They go out there, they take some pictures, write a general report, and then they go back to wherever they're from. The problem with that is that we've realized that despite that, even though the licensing requirements are relaxed by the department, which is a good thing because we need adjusters in there, right? It's not a good thing that the insurance companies are not properly staffed in order to manage the policies that they sell, but it's a good thing that they have people there on behalf of the insurance company, at least, I guess, to make sure that your claims are being documented and that they're actually doing something. The problem is we found is that the law still requires that these individuals carry a valid license of some sort from somewhere. And what we have found in several claims, particularly after Hurricane Irma, is that these adjusters from these other countries or other states, in fact, don't. And so this is actually really good stuff. This is great. I'm glad this is actually added here. And this is one of two points under Section 18 of the entirety of both the bills that actually does much of anything to protect you as a consumer and requires the insurance company to actually do something to protect you as a consumer. The second part is it requires the insurer to provide notices that explain when the insurer is providing a preliminary or partial estimate or making a claim payment that is not the full and final payment of a claim. That's awesome, but I struggle to understand how this fits within the context of your notice requirement to sue an insurance company and their obligation to fully and promptly investigate your loss. I'm really not understanding how this all kind of fits all together, particularly since as an advocate or whether that be an attorney, public adjuster, or a consultant that's going out there and working with the insurance company, and particularly for public adjusters that is required to produce an estimate 60 days, again, giving the opportunity for an insurance company to partially pay something as opposed to doing a full evaluation. Again, I'm struggling with some of these changes. They're not really adding up for me, but we are going to, again, break them down in a memo, provide you additional information and support. If you have any questions about these things, please let us know. It's not all doom and gloom. I do think that there are some things in here that do help to facilitate the claims process, like providing notice of who's actually adjusting your claim and their licensing, as if that wouldn't be just implied that you're actually using licensed and competent people. And if you requested this information, they wouldn't just give it to you. But now they're required by law to do it. Why is it a requirement now? It's because likely they weren't doing it. So, it's important that we look at these things, we understand them, that we understand how they implicate, whether it's your claim for your business or a community association, or you as a homeowner, and making sure that you fully understand these your obligations or the obligations of those that you hire. It is good that you know what they're obligated to do to, in fact, make sure they're doing it. And if they're not, that you take the appropriate steps to protect your interests as a policyholder. So we are here to help you. We want to make sure that you have all the information that you need. Continue to tune in. Guys, make sure that you've heard me say it many, many times. Hit the subscribe button. Follow us, like us on all the social media platforms. We are a resource for you. We have a resource section on our website. We have information you need as a policyholder. And I am excited next week to celebrate the 50th episode of the Kroger Court Live. Our subscribers on YouTube continues to grow. Our following on Facebook and Instagram, same thing, continues to grow. Our audience, our family, our team continues to grow. We're adding additional competent licensed professionals here on staff to get the message out, to advocate on your behalf, to represent your interests, whether it's placing insurance to recover from loss or rebuilding from any sort of loss and damage. We want to make sure that as you go through that cycle, that insurance cycle, that is a cycle, it's a constant cycle. Once you get that first policy, you've entered into the insurance cycle, and every phase, ready, recovery, build, as our signature process says, we want to make sure that you are getting the information you use. So subscribe, follow us, like us. You keep hearing it. We keep celebrating it. We're headed to 10 years. We have so much cool information coming out about what it took to get here, what we're doing in the future. But make sure you calendar May 15th, storm season 2021. More information is coming from us about it, what to expect, what you should be doing as a policyholder, whether you're a business owner, community association. Get ready for this storm season. They just, like I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, they just increased the number of named storms. That's not to say that we're gonna get hit. That's just to say that there's a increased likelihood that there's going to be more activity, whether it's in the Gulf or the Atlantic or the Pacific. And they're saying it's because of the warmer water. They're reporting higher than or way above average warmer temperatures in the ocean. So make sure you're paying attention to this stuff. So we continue our countdown. Again, huge thanks to our audience. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like us, follow on social media. This is your source for insurance news you can use.